everyone, and welcome back to yet another Malifaux crew Unpack with Tabletop Odyssey. Today we're diving back into the Neverborn faction. This is the second master from this, and you have all voted on Pandora and the Woe keyword. It was a tight race with the Dreamer and a very late sweep coming in from Castor trying to seize control, but for now Pandora is the victor and so they get the video. So, who is Pandora and why would you want to play Woe? Well, you see, even among the Neverborn there's one creature that they fear to see. A young woman singing a wordless tune to the box she holds. Where she walks, hope dies. People succumb to their darkest fears, and even the most horrible of monsters veer away. For inside the box are the tyrants of fortune and despair. They turn fear into reality, drive people into self-destructive spiral of despair, and bring about the worst luck. Because deep down, they know that they are their worst enemy. To Pandora, who relied on the box for companionship, it soon became a struggle to know where she started and the voices in the box ended. It was like an earthquake inside her head. There was a hole that only the box could fix. And so she gave into it. And woe be upon Malifaux that she did. But why would you actually want to play Woe? Well, you see, Woe is a very interesting keyword. It allows you to torment your opponents with their own attacks, controls their actions and their movement, and turns them against themselves. If these sorts of control playstyle is something that appeals to you, perhaps this is something you might like. Maybe, however, you are just the sort of person who really couldn't help themselves but peek at their wrapped birthday or Christmas presents and just had to know exactly what they were getting beforehand. The kind of mentality that led Pandora, well, the one this Pandora is based on, to delve deep into the box itself. Or maybe you just really love the Holy Trinity of horror films and the Demon Baby, Murder Scarecrow and Ghost Girl. This keyword has all three. I think it's a Ghost Girl anyway. Someone tell me in the comments below. That being said, there are two different playstyles for this faction, just like every single other keyword, and the first of which is that of Pandora Despair's Desire, sometimes referred to as Pandora 1, and her Dark Thoughts crew card. This crew card gives all Woe models the Opportunist ability, allowing once per activation before performing an opposed duel, this can be when you're attacking or defending, you can remove a friendly token from the target to receive a positive and a suit of your choice. This is amazing, and you apply a lot of tokens, as you can see on the right hand side. Slow, Paranoia, Fragile Eagle, and two different auras. That's quite a lot, and of course out of keyword and versatile can give you a variety of other tokens to add as well. Getting all of these tokens on your opponent, you can strip any of them at will when necessary to get a positive. I think the auras are probably the best one for this purpose, or slow, especially because Paranoia is very important to this playstyle. Which brings us on to the fact your unique Woe models here get access to the Hateful Rumors signature and stone attack action, which does no damage but allows you to move a target 6 inches and give them Fragile Ego, with a trigger to, if they have Paranoia, give them slow, and if they don't, give them Paranoia. Now this ability is really important if you are planning on crushing a model, and this keyword really focuses, especially this title, on isolating a model and then finishing it off. Fragile Ego allows you to choose an enemy model to activate, as long as it's not activated at this turn by removing this token. Okay? So if they're going to try and activate someone you don't want, you can activate your Fragile Ego instead. And you want certain models that are in your trap to activate early because then it allows you to trigger certain abilities within your crew, but also it allows you to kill them without response or healing. Which brings us to Paranoia, which is probably the most ubiquitous token that's going to be applied across both of the titles, while Fragile Ego is unique to this title. Paranoia is really important because when it's removed, the crew that applied it, which is you, can move the model that has it 4 inches and then make a scheme marker into base contact with it after resolving the current action, if any. So if you strip it for Opportunist, it will still trigger, but otherwise, during the end phase, the model that has the token has to either discard a card or remove a token. Now, you have a lot of ways of stripping cards from your opponent, so strip those cards, make sure they don't have a lot of options. They're forced with the choice of keeping hold of a potentially strong card left in their hand, or removing the token, which is going to move them and do a scheme, which could essentially score you points or deny them. So, I think you'll find that many opponents will be trying to hold on to a card to waste for the end phase, just to stop the Paranoia effect from happening. So obviously it's quite important that you trigger as many doors as possible that are going to strip those cards from their hand. There's a little bit of anti-synergy that you might find later on. We'll cover that when we get to it. So we've got Despair's Desire here herself. She has 6s on her defense and willpower, and Terrifying, which is going to put models on a negative to target her, which means hopefully they'll cheat more. You also have a word in your ear to help you, which is after resolving an attack action, this model may drain a stone or discard a card to give the attacker paranoia. In this instance, I would never be draining a stone because there's a lot of effects that require stones in this crew. The card is a lot better to waste. Which brings us on to Life Leech. Now, there are a few models in here. Well, I say a few. Pandora and the Sorrows are best buddies here with Life Leech. See, Life Leech, when an enemy model activates within 2 inches of this model, deal +1 damage to it for each model with this ability within 2 inches. So if you get Magical Christmas Land and have all 4 of these models within 2 inches of them, they're going to take 4 damage upon activating. Oh, and as a reminder, you can force them to activate with Fragile Ego. So if they were like trying to yank themselves away, so they don't have to take quite so much damage, force them to activate while they're still in the bundle that you set up from last turn. Which brings us to the box opens. Now this is a tactical action on a 7 with a pulse of 6. Once per activation, enemy models, it's quite a big pulse here, have to take 18 and 13 willpower duel or 2 damage. This is decent enough. It's quite a big range. I'd only use it if you have a lot of models nearby, but of course you've got lots of ways to pull people in. You can also move enemies that fail this duel and give them paranoia. That's probably what you really want to be doing here with the Mass Delusions. A nice way to spread out paranoia quite a bit. Spreading Fear, however, is also nice to deal 2 damage to enemies who already have a paranoia token. Just give a nice 4 damage pulse bubble there. That's pretty nice. Your other 2 attack actions here are the Self-Loathing, which allows you to choose one of your target's actions and deal damage equal to the damage of theirs. So kind of if you're facing someone who's got a lot of damage 3 or damage 4 models, Self-Loathing's really going to just turn it on their head. With Convulsions to help move them around if need be, and a Stone Trigger, which gives them Fragile Ego and forces them to declare an attack action controlled by you. Now that's the stone you'd want to be using a lot on, if I'm being honest. Not only does it give you an attack that could be targeting an enemy, but giving them Fragile Ego. Sadly, all the ways you can hand this out does happen to be with a stone. But Fragile Ego is just obviously going to control the activation order and put them in a difficult situation. Finally, your signature attack action, which not many people have, is Fear's Given Form, and it is a 1 damage attack, but skill 7. Now, the interesting thing about this is the fact that it gives them a paranoia token, which is amazing, and if you get a raise, you can put a scheme marker down, which actually sets up your totem. You also have on your heels to place you further up the board, so if you're struggling to get her up the field, I don't think you would, but you can grab her all the way up there. It's a 6-inch melee, by the way. I forgot to mention that. 6-inch melee is just absolutely wild. So she can just charge and hit someone from like 12 inches away. Crazy, right? I think that might be the longest melee in the game. She's also got Exploit Apathy, so you can allow another ally within 3 inches to declare a non-charge action. So that's nice as well. A lot of action efficiency. Like I say, this is a bit of a pull people into the bubble, spamming the box opens and handing out Fragile Ego, probably what you want to do. Get as many people into that death bubble life leech as you can, and then forcing them to activate. That's the plan, really. You then have her totem, the Poltergeist, who is surprisingly durable with Incorporeals and 8 wounds with 6 willpower. Not bad, not bad. And they have flight as well, so they're able to jump through walls and other terrain where needed. They have a nice ability called Dark Whispers, which is kind of the crux of things with all these schemes that you're able to put down. Now remember that Paranoia puts down a scheme, and this can help trigger Dark Whispers that once per activation, after an enemy model within 3 makes a scheme marker, deal 2 damage to it. So that's just a nice like little finishing move here. You then have their Tap the Ley Line, which you will probably never use because you have better stone things to use it on, and Telekinesis. Telekinesis is a very interesting one because it allows you once per turn to remove all enemy markers within range. Enemy, remember. And then enemy models have to take a speed duel or take 1 damage for each marker removed. So if there's lots of enemy schemes, or you're playing someone like Faye who puts down a lot of markers, this can be a nice way to just clear them out within 3 inches. There are not too many instances you can use this, but it's really nice to have in the back pocket. You've got your Agonizing Claws, which really, really help with the Paranoia. If it does 1 damage, but 3 if they've got Paranoia, and has a trigger to force discards, which you really want to be hitting as much as possible. So if you've got Opportunist to get that suit for you would be great. Drawn to Insanity, however, is their signature action, and you can kind of set up an Agonizing Claws here because of the sudden strike trigger. So Drawn to Insanity does not require line of sight, but they must have Paranoia. You place you into base contact with them, you get a free melee action and hit them for +2 damage because they've got Paranoia. It's pretty nice. And of course, because it does not require line of sight, you can jump through a wall to do this. It's great. So yeah, this is... Poltergeist's really cool. A nice little setup behind it, and really encourages you, of course, to put down this Paranoia. Your other opportunity here is Misery Business. See, this is for the title Pandora Tyrant Torn, and while the crew card seems a little bit more lackluster, you'll see why in a moment. See, Misery Business here gives every WoW model Cruel Whispers, which allows, after resolving an enemy attack against this model, you can drain a Soul Stone to move them 3 inches and give them Paranoia. Kind of sucks that it costs a stone, but sometimes this can be really useful, especially if you want to put them in a certain position. You've then got their plotting against you. Enemy models with a Paranoia token may not declare triggers during opposed duels with this model. This is really useful at just closing down those sorts of things. Yeah. Unfortunately, this does mean that people are less likely to cheat for a certain trigger, which might go against you in wanting to actually trigger the Paranoia there. So, something to think about. Now, this title actually focuses a little bit more about the auras as well. So you've got the aura Negligent, which is quite an interesting one. Enemy models within 2 inches that declare a non-walk action must pass a TN 10 willpower duel, or the action fails, and then the end phase remove this. So this is the old boring conversation. Basically, it just forces a lot of duels that are going to take cards away from your opponent's hand in order to do things, which will make Paranoia easier to go off. And then we've got Aura Hazardous, which this Pandora really loves. Obviously, a hazardous aura of 2 inches. Anyone who goes through it as an action there, once per activation per type of hazardous, is going to take damage. Which is great, because moving into Pandora Tyrant Torn herself, she has the Unstable ability, which gives enemy models with an 8 that are dealt damage from a hazardous terrain, +1 damage. So they're taking 2 from each type of hazardous here. And she's got ways to push people into that too, with No Shelter here, which is an attack action as her signature that can move friendly models, so you can unpack really easily, moves a target 4 inches, ignoring models, and then gives the target Aura Hazardous. Fantastic. With 2 amazing triggers here, Mental Trauma, forcing them to discard a card or take 3 damage, both of which obviously in this keyword are terrible for your opponent. Discarding cards is going to trigger Paranoia, 3 damage is awful to take. And then the Nothing Sacred Stone trigger, once per activation, the target has to drain a stone if able, and then you draw a card. Ooh, once per activation, I don't care. This is an amazing use of a Soul Stone. Not only do you take away their Soul Stone for a stone, but you get a draw too. Going back to the front of the card, you do actually have a nice little bit of defense here with Luck Thief, so all positives against you will be treated as negatives. That's really nice. Not as nice as it was last edition, where they couldn't cheat on an egg, but still nice nevertheless. And Toxic Family, so when you end your activation, allied models within 8 inches get to heal 1. A nice way to just top up a bit of health. Now, we've got a few different actions here that are worth looking into. First of all, we've got Anadonia, which is your summoning action. You can summon a woe minion into base contact with this model or the target. And with a trigger to give them Aura Negligent if you want. Probably not going to happen all of the time. Unfortunately, this is once per activation, but there are ways to certainly leverage this. So first of all, your aversions are going to be really cool to set up, and so are Lyssas. They're both something that this keyword likes, but sorrows can summon themselves as well. So maybe putting down a sorrow in an annoying place for life leech could be a good shout there. You probably want to be using one of your actions every turn to summon. It's just a lot of value, especially if you save the card for it. Which brings us on to Horrible Lies and Worse Truths. This is a skill 6, 8-inch range, 2 damage magic attack that forces the target to discard a card for each raise. So please get as many raises as you can. You can just sap their hand entirely. And it makes it even worse with that nice tome trigger, which forces them to discard an additional card. But if they don't, you get to draw. So not a great situation for them. And of course you can apply Aura Hazardous off it too, which is lovely. Finally, which I think sometimes might just be the best solution at times. See, there's something that people kind of forget in a control playstyle. They love trapping people and putting loads of conditions on them and forcing them to do things, which is great. But the best condition that you can give someone is dead. And Way to Despair kind of leads to that. So instead of Opportunist in the other keyword allowing you to get a positive from removing a condition, you can remove a friendly token to deal 2 damage. So remember, of course, Paranoia still does the move and scheme when it's removed. You get to add 2 damage to that as well and trigger it earlier, which is fantastic. Especially because you probably don't care quite so much about keeping it. Throwing someone through the shredder of hazardous damage at +2 and then dealing another 2 can be quite fun. So getting everyone to stack a bunch of tokens on them, yeah, really cool. Which brings her to her totem, Iggy. So unfortunately, because she is quite impressive, Iggy is not. They do have manipulative and 9 health. It's okay. they're probably still going to die quite quick. Their attack action is practically useless, apart from just applying an extra token of burning. And resupply is probably something you're never going to do either, so you're basically down to 2 actions. The first of which is his signature, I saw what you did, which gives the target paranoia, and this is probably something that you're just going to be spamming, because you want paranoia on enemy models, and he doesn't have a lot of better things to do. Little Arsonist, on the other hand, for the cost of a 7, makes a scheme marker within range, but you really want to raise here, so you need at least a 12 to keep the marker. And then enemy models within 2 inches of that have to take a speed or take 1 damage and burning, which really is not worth it. Thankfully, if you do fail it the first time, it becomes slightly easier. It only becomes a 5 you need, and therefore only a 10 to get the raise, but I mean, are you really doing this unless you need a scheme marker in a certain place? Like I say, sort you did for paranoia is probably the main use of this fellow. Which brings me on to the rest of the keyword. First of all, we've got Kade, who is honestly quite fun. I kind of prefer the old model, if I'm being honest, purely because she actually had a basket in her hand, which will make sense in a moment. So first of all, on her front of card, she's got manipulative, like a lot of models in this crew, so she activates later, she's going to be better. And I wouldn't hurt a fly. When resolving an attack targeting this model, you can drain a soul stone to be placed within 6. It's okay. The problem I have with manipulative in this crew is that you want your opponent to be cheating because it's last cards in their hand, and manipulative kind of just stops them from doing that, at least until you've gone, so it's not really it's kind of a bit of a deterrent. Now this model does have some really fun abilities here. You've got Goodie Basket and Baddie Basket, which are just frankly amazing names. Goodie Basket is her signature, and it's a tactical action. And once per activation, ally only, you can heal them for 2, plus 1 for each raise, which is nice. But it has 3 amazing triggers here. So first of all, you can interact off of a tome. You can get them to prepare from a mask, and that's one of the few ways you can actually get other models to prepare in this game. So that's really cool. And then Spicy, a non-master only, you can get them to declare an attack action. There's some models that would really like this in keyword. Next up, you do have Baddie Basket, which, to be honest, you will probably be using quite a bit. This is going to move the target 2 inches for an additional 2 inches for each raise, and can hand out Auric Negligent on a stone, or hand out Slow, or Hazardous, all of which are fantastic. They're all conditions and movement. Finally, you've got Self-Loathing, which, with a built-in tome as well to hand out Slow or Paranoia, once again chooses a target's attack actions and deals damage equal to theirs. So if they've got high damage models, they're going to suffer here. And obviously if they've got low damage models, you're going to survive a little bit longer, right? So, bit of a win-win. I'm not that keen on Kade. I think she's nice to have as a healer in your back pocket because your defenses aren't the best. But she doesn't do a lot that cheaper models couldn't do as well. So that's something to consider. We've then got baby Kade, the serial killing monster evil demon baby. Yep. Now this baby, despite being a baby, has 12 wounds and defense 6 with manipulative, so yeah, quite difficult to chew through. And they've got Feed on Paranoia, which allows them once per turn after an enemy model within 6 makes a scheme marker, you get to heal too. So this little tiny baby is going to be staying around quite a bit, which is nice to see. And they kind of have a very interesting skill set, which revolves around, first of all, Lure, allowing you to both pull friendly or enemy models towards you and can hand out Paranoia Slow on a trigger, which is really good. Obviously helping Unpack's great, but you really just need him to pull enemies into that bubble, which hopefully you're just gonna wail on with with attacks, with life leech, with hazardous auras, etc. Then you've got Stalk, which is your signature. Once per activation, you can move you up to your speed towards an enemy model in line of sight. So get line of sight there, that's an extra move, which actually makes this model a nice schemer, because you can essentially, as long as you're moving towards an enemy model, scheme, walk, scheme, which is nice, or walk, scheme, stalk, I guess. You then have the stone trigger on there. You're not Teddy. This model may declare a melee action targeting a non-Teddy model that receives +1 damage. Sadly, weirdly, you can no longer just naturally get Teddy in this keyword, or for cheaper. But we'll get to that in a minute. But getting +1 damage on your attack turns your main giant knife attack from damage 2 into damage 3 with a raised value of 3. So this guy's also, funnily enough, quite killy. You probably want them in the center of your bubble to take advantage of this. You pull people in, and then you're just going to smack them with quite a high damage attack. You can get crit strike on as well, and frantic attack, both of which are just going to really, yeah, just wail on enemies. He's a really nice killing tanky model to have in your crew. And he's still got a little bit of ways to move people around as well, which is fantastic. Like, imagining, so you stalk, you pay out stone, you hit for damage 3 base, and you get either crit strike to make it damage 4, your raise of 3, so you could be damage 5 maybe. You know, that's great. Or you can just, if you didn't get crit strike, you get convulsions and you just pull them through a hazardous marker instead. And they've got to discard a card. Yeah, this model's great. Which brings me on to the Carver, which, for a cost more, isn't actually quite as fun, I don't think. He does have 13 wounds, and he's got Terrifying, and Feed on Paranoia as well, so just good at healing as well. They're nice to have. Ruthless as well, ignoring other models' Terrifying and weird defenses, is... There's not very many of them out there, and if you're facing a crew that has a lot of weird defenses, maybe this is a model you want to take a lot. That being said, this model is a little bit more complex, and not necessarily in the best way. First of all, we've got Glimpse of Insanity, which is going to hand out Paranoia, and for each raise you can move it too. That's nice, with on your heels to place you in base contact. That's a nice ability. You've then got Smashing Pumpkins, which is your signature, which hands out a Remains marker within range, with a duel to hand out 2 damage on Paranoia, with a stone trigger to place you into base contact with an enemy that was within range, and then take a melee action. Stone for an extra melee isn't the best, if I'm being honest. You do have another way to get that, like, 3rd melee attack action, however, off of the Rusty Shears trigger. So Rusty Shears is 6 with a positive, which is nice, and 3 damage, and hands out Negligent on a raise, but you also have a trigger to shove aside and get another melee attack on someone else. The shove aside is really good because you can move them through your aura, which is pretty good. It's nice to have, but this guy, he doesn't hit quite as hard as Baby Kade. He's a similar defensiveness, and he costs a slightly more. And also he's kind of slower, so if you only could take one, I'd take Baby Kade, and I think that's probably the situation you're going to be in most of the time, but he's still got good situations, especially against weird defense crews, where he's going to perform quite well. Then we've got Delirium, which is our final unique model. I really like this model. Delirium has lower defenses, unfortunately, and 11 wounds, but they do have Incorporeal, which does help, and they've got Don't Turn Your Back, which is really nice to just turn off enemy interacts. Now, this is obviously going to help you win in the long term, because they can't push strat markers, they can't drop bombs, and obviously they can't necessarily score on a lot of schemes when they're engaged. Incorporeal obviously keeps them alive, and then you've got Rush, which combined with their attack action of Mirrored Malice is quite interesting. which gives you that 8 inches of movement into Mirrored Malice, and of course you get to choose the damage of an enemy's attack once again. Don't know why this one's called Mirrored Malice instead, but maybe just because they're a mirror demon. And it's got the nice, lovely trigger that allows you to discard a card, which, to be honest, with Opportunist, you want to be hitting this constantly. I would definitely be removing lots of tokens to be triggering Touch of Madness, just because I know it's going to ruin their hand and allow me to get end phase stuff. And also, if you manage to throw in an execute model, then they don't like a hand either. Which brings us on to House of Mirrors. Now, this is a really cool ability here that allows you once per time to summon a Delirious Thrall. But for stone, you take away the once per. So yeah, you can hand out 2 Delirious Thralls if you want for the cost of an 8. Well, 2 8s and a stone, I guess. Maybe a bit tad expensive, but these guys are kind of useful, so this might be worth doing maybe once a game. But at the very least, you're always going to be able to get one once a turn, so that's nice. You've then got Psychotic Influence, which is your signature action. And if you've got Paranoia on them, you're going to get an additional raise, and you get to... It's one of those ones where you get to choose an additional effect depending on how many raises you have. So there's 3 of them, and you're going to get 2 if they've got Paranoia minimum. So first of all, you've got Acrophobia, which places a target within 2 inches of its current location, and if it increases elevation, it's dealt 2 damage. So I like this one, especially if you set up like an aura of hazardous at the top of a building. To just place them up there. They're going to get 2 damage from that. They're going to take damage from the hazardous, and that's just going to be quite fun. You've then got Agoraphobia, which moves them 4 inches towards the deployment zone. This can be interesting, especially if you need to push someone off a point. But again, Acrophobia can also do the same if there's a building nearby, so it depends on the map. And then you've got Monophobia, which moves an enemy model in line of sight of the target towards them. So it moves an enemy towards them. That's nice for bunching people up. I think Acrophobia is definitely the best of these effects, and the other 2 are more situational, depending on whether you need to group enemies up, which of course you like doing, or whether you just need to push them off a point. Agoraphobia can be really, really annoying, actually, especially if you're playing Protected Territory, because you can just... Is it Protected Territory? Always... Boundary Dispute. Why do I always get this one wrong? Why do I keep forgetting it? Boundary Dispute, because obviously they're trying to get close to their markers and just pushing them away from it. It's quite funny. So yeah, a really cool model here. I'm not sure if it's quite worth 9, but I think it really depends on the matchup. It's got a lot in its toolkit. And the guys that they can summon are the Delirious Thralls, which, to be fair, you can summon for a cost of a 5 from Tyrant Torn as well. But these guys are cost 3 to hire, and you're never going to do that. And they die really easily. But these guys are summonable, don't turn your back, which, to be fair, is really cool because you can just dump it in necessary and go, oh no, they're going to start interacting with the bomb here. They're going to put a Boundary Dispute marker, so I'm just going to summon this Thrall right next to them and just go, yeah, no, you need to push someone away from you, and then if you do that, you're away from the marker, and then you're not going to interact with this, so sucks to be you, right? And then these guys, they have a Mirrored Image attack, which stops you and the enemy from cheating Fate, and you're probably never going to use this attack, to be honest. It's only 1 damage, skill 4, and realistically, only Convulsions or maybe Grab On are worth doing. It's okay. But also, these guys have a nice ability that if they suddenly become useless, you can just walk them to a good, convenient point and then Final Reflection. Targeting an enemy model within 1 and kill this model. Make a ski marker in base contact with the target, and then demolish Shattered Glass, so when it dies, deal damage to them. That's nice. Like I say, you're not going to hire these guys. They're pretty nice summons, though. especially on a couple of strategies. Next up are the Lyssa, and honestly, I really like the Lyssa, and the only real downside is these guys do not have a signature action. Now, the Lyssa do have Incorporeal and 5 wounds, but only stat 4 in defense, so these guys are probably going to die quite quick, sadly. But they're really nice to summon as well, especially because of Frozen Curse, turning the area within 2 inches of the model into hazardous terrain. Correct me if I'm wrong, but because it's a different type of hazardous terrain to the Aura Hazardous, I think they both trigger once per activation. So you can get in a position where if they're near Tyrant Torn and another model with Aura Hazardous, you can throw off 4 damage through Hazardous there. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how that works. Their attack you're never going to use unless it's just a way to try and get Paranoia and Aura Hazardous on, because skill 4 isn't great. Most of the time you will be using your Chilling Whispers, which is going to move a target 4 inches, and then if you rage you can remove a marker within an inch, which is great, and draw out secrets to drop one of your own. Essentially moving people up into your puddle of death. But these guys are just nice summons to stick in places and be like, yeah, if you come in this area you're going to take damage. Tyrant Torn loves this. Despair's Desire, not quite so much. Then you've got the Aversions. Now, these guys are, I think they're necessary. They're also quite cheap. 7 wounds, 5/5 defense, you know, Incorporeal, it's just decent enough. There are a couple of things about this model that make it fantastic. Now, bear in mind, summon tier 9, a little bit more difficult to get one of these out, so they're probably better to hire. Now, these guys have a signature action, Frightening Reminder, to can target friendly models and move them 4 inches, and then can give out Aura Hazardous. So these guys are fantastic in unpacking your models and getting them up the board. If you need someone last minute trying to rush to an Informants marker to take it, God, these guys are great. And they compensate for a lack of onward type effects in your crew, the move, extra walk actions or move actions within your keyword. These guys are just going to be moving you for you. You then also have the Terrorize, which is almost the reverse of that, which forces an enemy to move away from you, ideally through some hazardous, and then you can place into base contact with them, which is quite funny. Or you can hand out Paranoia and Slow, which is cool. Your attack action, 12-inch range, quite nice. Hands out Aura Hazardous on a Crow and does 2 damage. Nothing to be sniffed at, especially if you're trying to fish for that Aura Hazardous. And then finally, a really cool effect that you're going to like is Antipathy, which when you activate, all enemy models engaged have to discard a card or be moved 3 inches. So if you're near hazardous terrain, or like on an Informant's marker, if they don't discard a card, they're going to be pushed into that or away from it, and it's just going to be a real pain in the ass. But also, if they want to stay near those points and don't want to be shredded through those things, they're discarding a card, which is obviously going to hurt them later. These guys are fantastic, I really like. Which brings me on to Sorrow. Now, Sorrow have a magical Christmas land with the Life Leech. I think they're really cool just to have, like, I think they want to be a Pandora 1 model because they stack with Life Leech so well. But they're also in the situation that they can't really be summoned by Pandora 1, so they're almost easier to get out with Pandora 2, and you kind of have to hire them in Pandora, or at least one of them in Pandora 1. Now, these guys, 5 wounds, 5s on defenses, but they have flight and incorporeal as well. So these guys are going to be zipping through 3 buildings and have a tiny bit of defense. They do have creep along, which helps out with their movement. They can move towards a friendly model line of sight, which is nice, makes them a little bit better at scheming if you want to go down that route. And then we've got Horrible Whale and Growing Sorrow. So Growing Sorrow costs a stone, and you will actually want to use this They must have paranoia and slow, so that's something you're going to have to set up here. They've got to be within 6 inches. You get to remove one of those tokens from the target, or well, a friendly token, to summon a sorrow into base contact. And then, of course, you've got the mask trigger that you really want here as well, to place yourself into base contact. Now, when they activate, they're going to take, obviously, a minimum of 2 damage from Life Leech. So, sometimes paying the stone to get a sorrow out is worth it, but obviously it requires a lot of setup, and there's a lot of... it can be very well telegraphed, so it's something to consider. Obviously, opponents are going to really be wanting to take token removal against you because it's going to be quite effective, except on the paranoia. But if they can strip off the slow, then they're not going to be summoning more sorrows. You've then got Horrible Wail, which on the base of it is a melee attack that does 1 damage, but the gang up trigger +1 for each other ally. Well, if you manage to get into a position where you've got all 3 sorrows out in position, or just a lot of allies in general, this suddenly turns into a 3 damage melee attack, which is nice. Like I say, this is a model that I'm really iffy about, because I want to have lots of them, because you want that Life Leech stack. It's quite fun, but at the same time, it's also something where you go, well, really, then don't provide a lot otherwise. But if you do get it, I mean, it's great. Now, we've had a look at the keyword, and now we're going to look at some out-of-keyword picks, out-of-keyword and versatile. Now, this is quite difficult, because I genuinely think that you probably want to hire pretty much all the time stuff from in-keyword with this keyword, because it's just such a good synergy keyword. And yet at the same time, I still have to provide 2 options to you. So the first of all, I thought I'd go with Wrath. Now, this is not something that you're really gonna see too often, but it's got some interesting things about him. He's 8 cost. I mean, you can technically hire this guy as a leader to have the crosswords keyword. I don't recommend that. Obviously, you're going to be hiring him in Neverborn Cruise as a versatile instead. He's 11 wounds, 6 defenses, but only 4 willpower. And Mosh Pit is on the front of his card. So this guy, when an enemy activates within 6, you can drain a stone, which they're very limited supply, but you know. And if they do, the enemy must either then drain a stone themselves, discard a card, or declare the charge action controlled by this model. So, you know, all of which not particularly great for your opponent. Being forced to charge away or attack their own allies can be really sucky. Discarding a card really helps you, and obviously draining a stone from them also really helps you. So, all good things at the cost of a stone yourself. Now, Antagonize the Crowd is a 3-inch aura, TN6. Once per activation, this model heals 2 for each non-Pure enemy within range. So if you get him right in the thick of things, which in this keyword, in fairness, is one of the few things that you will be getting a lot of bunched up enemy models, you're going to heal 2 for each non-Pure in range, so he is quite tanky. You also have another stone effect here to place into base contact with an enemy and draw a card. You might want to use that, depends if how much you need to get him in there and draw cards, but yeah. You then have the signature action Rush the Stage. Once per activation, you move to the target towards this model, and they have to declare a melee action, if able, and then this model declares a melee action back. The best scenario for this is if you get them in a position where they come towards you and are within 3 inches, can't attack you because they don't have melee range, but you can attack them back. And obviously, forcing enemies to move towards you and then into a pit of despair can be really good. Combine this with an amazing attack. It's 3-inch range, it's Raise 3, 2 damage, and deals Craven on a hit. This is one of the easiest ways to apply Craven in the game, and Craven is busted. Not only is it another token that you can shift for Opportunist if you so wanted to, but Craven is obviously going to deny them the ability to really effect strategies and schemes, which is just an amazing control ability. Add this with Siphon Life to just turn it into a damage 3 and heal yourself. Also very nice. Or Encore to get a second attack against them. It's also really nice. I'm not saying this model is going to be used very often, probably not at all, but he might be fun to try. I think if he's got any synergy with the Neverborn crews, this is probably the one I would put him in. And then we've got Teddy, who is versatile and also a nightmare model. Fair enough. But does have the whole like storyline with Baby Kade, and I kind of felt a bit weird if I didn't put Baby Kade and Teddy together, you know. He is 10 cost, he does cost a lot, but arguably I'd say he's a better beta than the Carver. Now, he doesn't have Ruthless, so there is that. He's got 13 wounds and regeneration though, which means that he's gonna be hard to shift, and terrifying as well, which of course we love terrifying, makes him cheat more, less cards in hand. Now, because you are a summoning keyword, especially in Tyrant Torn, you're going to have a lot of chaff, especially as well if you've got Delirium up, summoning Delirious Thralls. This guy can a new stuffing to target a friendly model in range, kill them, and then heal 3. So if you're looking a bit light, you can heal yourself, especially on a Delirious Thrall, kill them, trigger their demise, and drop a scheme. Do some extra damage to the enemy. Be great if you drop a scheme as well. Yeah, nice. Or any excess models that you think are going to die anyway, using them as an opportunity to heal you can be quite nice. He's then got probably the most terrifying attack in the game, or at least well, for a non-master really. This guy does 4 damage, can make it irreducible as well, which is very mean. Has bowled over to move the target away, which can push them through your 2 damage hazardous in Tyrant Torn, or 2 times 2 hazardous in Tyrant Torn. Yeah. And then also has got an execute trigger, which obviously can just delete a model if they don't have cards or stones, which in this keyword of all keywords, they're not going to have many cards, and hopefully not many stones either. Obviously, if something dies, they're then going to get a stone they can keep a hold of to prevent this, so not quite as good as before, but still, this guy is a terrifying beast on the battlefield, and his signature action also just compounds that. You can target friendly models here, not just ally, and push the target 5 inches away from you. For each action it receives, the model may move another 5 inches. So you can just throw an ally halfway across the board, or you can throw an enemy far away from you if you so wish, which is really good, and give them slow to boot. Yeah, that's nasty. Just imagine throwing an enemy 10 inches away, you know, just give them slow, and they get dragged through a bunch of hazardous, and then either back into their deployment zone where they can't interact with things, or into the life leech bubble where they can cry. Teddy, safe to say, still has a lot of synergy with this crew. Now on to the Tactica portion, which is probably the bit that some of you have been waiting for a while, and that's perfectly right. So let's get quite into it. I think Despair's design is a little bit more technical and hard to figure out. And the Holy Grail, of course, is getting all the Life Leech models in one place in a big group, but that's a little bit unrealistic. So instead, you kind of want to utilise your fragile ego to force activations before wailing on them. Obviously, forcing them to activate within a bubble of death, be that hazardous, be that Life Leech, is obviously still great. But yeah, fragile ego forcing the activation order can also protect your models as well. And also gives you quite a good indication when they try to activate with a certain model. You kind of thinking, okay, this is what they're trying to do, or they're trying to avoid going with a certain other model because they want it to go later. And forcing that model to go early can really throw off their plan. You then have Paranoia, and the other tokens are going to increase your killing power. overall, because of opportunist, you're getting that positive and also then triggering paranoia. You have lots of ways to scheme off of it as well. Not to mention Pandora's attack, which is going to be handing out schemes at range. She's kind of got that little bit more scheming power as a result, I suppose. You can then combo Paranoia with the Poltergeist's Dark Whispers. It's a nice chain there, dragging people into the range of that Dark Whispers, forcing them to drop the scheme and taking damage. So you can really create, obviously, that pit of death. I will advise this across both here, but be conservative with your stones, or I know hire Ashlyn, who I think might be the only model in the entire faction, apart from a master, that can gain stones. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. And she only gets that if she kills a model on a trigger, so... You are going to have a lot of models dying because of... You just have a lot of cheap minions, which you're going to have a lot of. So you will get some back as the game goes on, but... You're also going to be using stones quite a lot, so... Be careful you don't trap yourself in a situation there. Finally, Tyrant Torn. She's probably a little bit more straightforward. Most people probably gravitate towards her a bit more. She wants a lot of hazardous auras nearby to help with beast and unstable, and there's quite good range on unstable as well, so keeping those nice hazardous auras. If you can get one in a building with Delirium as well, even better. And she can obviously use summoning to get aversions to allow more movement, or to get Lyssas to have more auras if need be, depending on what you need. Or Sorrow if you just want to get the life leech, I suppose. You need to put a little bit more focus on discarding their hand. Obviously her attack is great for this. Delirium, great for this. So yeah. And then you make the most out of Paranoia tokens, which drags enemies through those hazardous auras again, and puts some schemes down for you. You then have a summon energy engine that can fuel the likes of Teddy if you so need to, or you can just swarm the battlefield and help with activation control, because obviously it forces them to think about who they're going to activate and when, or stall, and if they stall you get more activations, which allows you to pull them into more annoying positions. So there's a kind of a lose-lose situations there. They either go early and then you push them through and they can't respond, or you push them through and then they have to respond and it's not necessarily doing something they want to do. You have fantastic movement control across the entire keyword in both titles. This allows you to take points effectively, whether you're using an aversion to push someone onto a point, or something like that. Yeah, or you can push people off points or away from markers. Yeah. They probably will never go on a building voluntarily with you nearby, just because you've got a lot of forced movement to get them off, and that's just inviting them to take more damage. But obviously you can push them onto a building with Delirium that has a hazardous on top, and then push them off the building immediately after for more damage, because why wouldn't you, right? So yeah, there's some fun moments that you can do. Lists, some example lists I've come up with will be in the description below. I have no idea if they're any good. Someone tell me. People have been recommending me putting lists in descriptions. Now, some of them I have tested because I own the keywords, and some like this, unfortunately, I'm kind of going on what feels right, or from the advice of people within the community who play these. So thank you to those who are amazing and are helping all around. With that being said, we have come to the end of the video, so I hope this has been informative and engaging and helpful in some capacity. If nothing else, we're learning a little bit about the models and my thoughts. Please let me know who you would like to see next, regardless of faction or keyword. And if you liked the video, please feel free to give me a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed that's most of my viewer base. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.